The story begins with the hero Yuuga and his trusted crew standing at the gates of the Demon Lord's massive fortress. Just before the final battle begins, they hype each other up, ready to take on their ultimate mission. The castle doors slowly groan open, and multiple sinister eyes stare them down from the darkness within. As the group steps inside, they're immediately greeted by the Demon Lord's cocky general Yaoki, who wastes no time taunting them, claiming they're far too weak to be any real threat. Without hesitation, the party's mage launches a blazing spell straight at him, but Yaoki effortlessly swats it aside. The swordsman charges next, aiming for a quick slash, but Yaoki dodges with ease and drives a punishing kick into his gut, sending him flying. Not backing down, the support mage Cecilia casts a buff on Yuuga, and he immediately unleashes his ultimate move Excalibur. But Yaoki answers with a bottomless dark spell of his own, and the two powers collide in a dazzling clash. Despite Yuuga's effort, Yaoki overpowers them, wiping out the entire party by himself. With the whole squad down and out, Yuuga lies on the floor, defeated, wondering if this is where it all ends. He then blacks out, only to have Yaoki, strangely enough, start healing everyone on the ground. But then, his eyes fall on Cecilia, and he freezes. She looks absolutely stunning, and he can't help but stare. Right then, Yaoki's underlings show up and ask if they should finish off the heroes. Caught red-handed admiring Cecilia's face, Yaoki gets flustered as his subordinates start teasing him. Annoyed, he orders them to quietly drop the unconscious heroes near a nearby human settlement, muttering a reluctant farewell to his fallen princess. 1 month later, Yaoki is summoned to the Demon Lord's chambers. His top aide Zekiel questions how many times these heroes have come back for more, so Yaoki replies flatly that it's been 13 times now. Zekiel scoffs, calling them hopeless losers who clearly don't know when to quit. The Demon Lord then asks why Yaoki hasn't simply finished them off. Yaoki shrugs and says those pathetic wannabes aren't even worth killing. Hearing that, the Demon Lord suggests letting Yaoki's subordinates handle it. But Yaoki's eyes twitch because he knows his own men wouldn't survive against Yuuga's team, and he also doesn't want Cecilia to get hurt. So with a mix of pride and protectiveness, he volunteers to take them out himself. The Demon Lord grins silently, giving Yaoki the green light. As Yaoki stepped out of the throne room and made his way back to his quarters, a heavy feeling settled in his chest. He couldn't help but worry about the hero's fate. Deep down, he understood he was the only one strong enough to stand against them, and if he didn't, they had the power to kill the Demon Lord themselves. With that in mind, he found himself unsure of what move to make next, especially with the Demon Lord's grip on the world tightening by the day. The following day, the heroes showed up at the Demon Lord's castle once again. After Yaoki effortlessly knocked back their swordsman and Yuuga, the assault mage Mikana stepped up to retaliate. Her first barrage of magic was blocked without much effort, but right after, she launched a follow-up spell in complete silence, catching him off guard. Still, Yaoki managed to react just in time, and the sheer speed of his defense left Mikana stunned. Off to the side, Yaoki spotted Cecilia healing her teammates, and the sight made him blush for a moment. He broke into laughter and began mocking the heroes for their pointless attempts at taking him down. But Yuuga wasn't backing down and unleashed a mighty Excalibur spell in a last-ditch effort to stop him. Unfortunately, Yaoki tanked the blast without flinching and told them plainly that they'd never stand a chance against him. Even so, Yuuga stood firm, saying they had no choice but to press on if they wanted to defeat the Demon Lord. Then out of nowhere, Yaoki pointed straight at Cecilia and told them he'd let them pass, only if they left her behind. Yuuga immediately rejected the idea, but Mikana, trying to stay pragmatic, considered the offer. She argued that Yaoki had the strength to wipe them out whenever he felt like it, so they should take the opportunity and focus on their real mission. Yuuga still refused to leave their healer behind, but Cecilia spoke up for herself and said she was willing to remain. With heavy hearts, the group moved on, swearing to come back for her after they took down the Demon Lord. Once they were gone, Cecilia turned to Yaoki and demanded to know why he'd made her stay. Assuming he was itching for a fight, she quickly prepared a spell, but Yaoki threw up his hands and surrendered, asking to talk instead. She questioned why he was introducing himself like a gentleman if he planned to kill her anyway. He simply answered that if he truly wanted her dead, she would have been gone long ago. Slowly lowering her guard, she took a breath and asked what it was he really wanted. Yaoki gathers what little courage he has left and confesses that he fell for her the moment he saw her, admitting that he wants to be with her. Cecilia is completely taken aback, but after thinking it over, she gently but firmly rejects him. The rejection hits Yaoki so hard that all his will to live drains away. Cecilia assumes he was only trying to deceive her and prepares to strike him again. But when Yaoki doesn't even attempt to defend himself, she halts her attack halfway through. Yaoki urges her to go on and finish him off, saying he has no desire to keep living. Refusing to believe someone could give up that easily, Cecilia presses him for the truth. He then explains that he has spent his entire life imprisoned inside the Demon Lord's castle, only allowed outside to wipe out human villages, something he never wanted to do. Stunned, Cecilia insists that demons are inherently evil. Yaoki responds that even though he looks like a demon, he was actually reincarnated from another world. Still confused, Cecilia listens as he explains that he is human on the inside, trapped in a demon's body. Realizing that reincarnated people usually possess overwhelming power, she questions why he hasn't defeated the Demon Lord himself. Yaoki explains that killing the Demon Lord would make him the next ruler of the demons, forcing him to commit horrific acts against humanity. And feeling completely trapped, he believed his fate was to rot away in misery inside his cell forever. But that changed when he met Cecilia, whose presence gave him hope that life still had meaning. But now, with even that final hope gone, Yaoki believes he has nothing left to live for. At that moment, Cecilia tells him that he must keep living and use his power to protect humanity instead. She believes he can find another purpose in life and offers to help him escape into the outside world. Several days later, the Kingdom of Clarionis holds a grand celebration honoring the heroes for their victory over the Demon Lord. King Dart stands before them, praising their bravery in saving the world from a great evil, and announces that a 3-day festival will be held in their honor. From a hidden spot outside the kingdom, Yaoki watches the celebration from afar. Knowing that Cecilia now lives there, he decides to disguise himself as an ordinary human. With a pained expression, he snaps off his demon horn and enters the kingdom. At the same time, Mikana congratulates Yuuga on their victory, filling him with joy. He then turns towards Cecilia to celebrate with her, fully aware that their success was largely thanks to her efforts, causing Mikana to feel left out and overlooked. Not long after, Yaoki steps into the city's Adventurers Guild to register. The lazy receptionist Kramen lets out a sigh and lazily pulls out a registration form. Once Yaoki signs it, Kramen hands over a fresh guild card and explains the basics. He'll start off as an F-rank adventurer, the lowest of the ranks, with S being the highest. He mentions that Yaoki can climb the ranks by completing missions, but warns him that it usually takes at least a month just to reach E rank. Before letting him go, Kramen tells him not to lose the card and offers a half-hearted good luck. After that, Yaoki takes on a flurry of missions and manages to earn enough coin to rent a room at an inn. A week later, he returns to the guild, where the place is buzzing with rumors about a newbie climbing ranks at lightning speed. While that's going on, Yaoki heads to the counter and asks Kramen for more commissions. Kramen, clearly not in the mood for paperwork, snaps at him to go ask the cute receptionist next to him instead, but Yaoki flat out refuses, saying he'd rather deal with Kramen instead. Brushing it off, Kramen suddenly eyes Yaoki and asks him who he really is. He knows damn well that no average guy jumps from F to D rank in just a week. Yaoki plays dumb, but Kramen just sighs and says he can't accuse him of anything since he technically hasn't broken any rules. Right then, a girl wearing a hood walks into the guild and demands that Kramen cancel all of Yaoki's pending quests. Yaoki turns to see who it is, and instantly recognizes Cecilia. Kramen, caught off guard, wonders what the hero priestess is doing in the guild, but she quickly hushes him and then invites Yaoki to come with her for a private talk at her place. While they're riding in Cecilia's carriage, Yaoki can't help but wonder why a girl just took him home. When they arrive at her estate, one of the guards spots Yaoki stepping out and immediately gets suspicious. He points a spear at him and demands to know what he's doing with Cecilia. But before anything escalates, she steps down and tells the guard that Yaoki is a friend. Another guard comes over and pulls the first one back, and Cecilia leads Yaoki inside to sit down for tea. Once there, she apologizes for not finding him sooner, but Yaoki doesn't mind. He asks how she even managed to track him down in a city this huge, and she tells him it wasn't hard because he's gotten pretty famous after rocketing up to D rank in just a few days. Then out of nowhere, she asks him to quit the Adventurers Guild, completely throwing him off. She goes on to explain that after Yuuga beat the Demon Lord, the other nations have started waging proxy wars to seize power. She also tells Yaoki that Yuuga's already being courted by world leaders, offered money, women, and more power than he could ever wish for. Even though Yaoki can't help but feel a little jealous of the hero, he also realizes the guy's just a pawn in the hands of greedy nations. Cecilia warns him that with power like his, he'll attract the same kind of attention, maybe even worse. And since he's stronger than the hero, she's genuinely afraid someone might try to use his strength to conquer the world. Yaoki gets where she's coming from, but he still jokes that power doesn't pay rent. Cecilia offers to hire him herself, but admits she can't afford someone of his caliber. She pleads with him anyway, only for Yaoki to suddenly ask her to lift her head. Then, with way too much confidence, he says even if the world's most beautiful woman threw herself at him, he'd still turn her down, because his heart only belongs to her. That makes Cecilia burst into laughter, while Yaoki instantly regrets going that hard with his words. A moment later, Cecilia's mother, Celia, enters the room. She apologizes for the way her guard acted and sends her maid Sophia to handle the situation. And once Sophia leaves, Celia casually mentions that Cecilia's already getting a ton of marriage proposals. Yaoki's eyes widen, especially when he finds out that even Yuuga confessed to her. But Cecilia quickly assures him that she rejected the hero flat out. Seeing how red Yaoki's face turns, Celia teases him a little and bluntly asks if he has feelings for her daughter. Then she gets straight to the point, asking if he's interested in marrying Cecilia. Caught completely off guard, Yaoki wonders if this is some kind of trick question, but Celia insists on a direct answer. He shakes his head and tells her that Cecilia already turned him down once. He explains he's working hard as an adventurer, so that one day he'll be able to propose properly. Celia raises an eyebrow and asks if he's really turning down such a generous offer, but Yaoki stands firm, saying he'll always respect Cecilia's wishes. That finally earns her approval, and she admits it was a test to see if he'd drool over the opportunity like some desperate lowlife. And since he didn't, she tells him he's welcome to visit their house anytime. Later, Cecilia tells Yaoki that her mom might actually like him. And although the idea kind of stresses him out, he's grateful for the chance he got. He then asks if it's okay to start calling her by her first name. She agrees, and even calls him by his name. Overwhelmed, Yaoki lets out a loud cheer, feeling like he just inched a little closer to winning her heart. The next morning, Yaoki tracks down a cockatrice for his quest and slips through every energy beam it launches like it's child's play. The more he dodges, the more the beast loses its mind, flapping and screeching as it charges him in a blind rage. But the second it gets within striking distance, Yaoki blasts it with a thunder spell so strong it lights up the sky, frying the giant bird where it stands. With the job done, he casually strolls over and starts plucking out every last feather, wrapping up the mission without breaking a sweat. Right then, a Dullahan appears, and just moments later, a harpy dive bombs from above, launching an attack on Yaoki. Then a second boy rushes in to join the assault, forcing Yaoki to shout and remind them all that he used to be their leader. When they finally recognize that the boy is actually Yaoki in disguise, Duke demands to know why he disappeared after the Demon Lord died. The others are just as confused, prompting Yaoki to finally explain why he left so suddenly. He starts by proudly revealing that he confessed to Cecilia and got brutally turned down. Then, he tells them that he's now living as a human adventurer. All three demons are stunned, but Yaoki quickly tells them they're free to live their lives without him. But none of them are willing to walk away from their former master. They're way too curious about the girl who drove him to quit his old life. Yaoki insists they stay behind, warning them about the headaches of hiding their identities with convincing disguises, but none of them back off. Eventually, Yaoki gives in and agrees to let them tag along. He removes their demonic traits one by one. But when Cecilia learns that Yaoki went as far as to pluck every feather off the poor harpy, she completely lays into him for being a heartless jerk. Yaoki admits he messed up and apologizes, much to the demon's amusement as they watch him get chewed out. Later, Cecilia invites everyone into her home for some tea. She's surprised by how well all three demons manage to blend in with human appearances. Duke explains that he reattached his head to his armor, while Seek the Pixie and Happiness the Harpy ditched their most noticeable traits to blend into society. He also tells Cecilia that Yaoki was the real reason their group was so relaxed and chaotic. Back at the Demon Lord's castle, Zekiel would constantly pressure Yaoki to work, but Yaoki always locked himself in his room and flat out refused, driving the Demon Lord up the wall. At one point, Duke thought it'd be smart to punish him, but ended up getting his head blown off for the trouble. Since then, he's been loyal to Yaoki ever since, and Cecilia finally understands how much the demons respect him. Right then, Yaoki notices the other two demons are nowhere to be found. Knowing they can't risk being spotted, the group quickly sets off to track down the missing misfits. As they pass through the mansion's courtyard, they find Seek curled up and napping on Celia's lap. Yaoki immediately apologizes for whatever trouble his friend might have caused, but Celia brushes it off with a smile. She explains that she'd just been quietly watching Seek while he played alone, and he eventually dozed off from exhaustion. Yaoki nods in understanding, but then asks where Happiness went, since she was supposed to be with Seek. That's when Celia drops the surprise that Sophia had already found her and took her in to train her as a maid. The whole gang rushes back inside and confronts Sophia, demanding to know why she abducted their innocent friend. Once Sophia realizes Happiness is with Yauki, she admits that she was expecting a new maid today and just assumed Happiness was the one. Yauki apologizes for the mix-up and tells Happiness to go ahead and change out of the outfit. But for some reason, she flat out refuses. Instead, she turns to Sophia and asks if she can just keep the job, leaving everyone frozen in disbelief. In the end, the group congratulates Happiness on landing her new gig. As they get ready to head out, Celia kindly tells the demons they're welcome to visit anytime. Then she sneaks up beside Yauki and quietly whispers that Cecilia has a day off coming soon, hinting that he should take her out. Grinning like a fool, Yauki eagerly agrees, thrilled that the parents are finally giving him the green light for a real date. The following morning, he waits patiently at their meeting spot. Soon enough, a carriage rolls in, and Cecilia steps out wearing a charming disguise. Yauki stares at her, stunned, until she nervously asks if something's wrong. He quickly explains that her glasses just completely threw him off, so she reminds him that she has to stay hidden. After all, everyone in the city knows her face. She apologizes for dragging him into all this trouble, but Yauki just shakes his head and promises he'll make this their best day yet. The two of them then wander through the lively streets together. While walking, Cecilia spots a cozy little bakery and makes a mental note to come back for tea. She soon pauses to admire some lovely flowers at a corner stall, though Yauki secretly thinks none of them even come close to her. A bit later, she crouches down to pet a nearby cat and playfully starts making cute meowing sounds, forcing Yauki to glance away before he loses his mind. Not long after, the pair stroll into a boutique, where Yauki helps her pick out a stunning red dress. After that, Cecilia thanks Yauki for spending the day with her, saying she finally feels refreshed from her usual exhausting routine. Caught off guard, he's genuinely glad that his presence helped ease her stress. Wanting to make the outing a little more memorable, he brings her to a small accessory shop to buy her a little gift. Not far off, Yuuga is also strolling around the city with Makana, both of them disguised. The moment he spots Cecilia, Yuuga instantly calls out, but Makana quickly shuts him up, trying to keep their cover intact. Still, Yuuga strolls right up to Cecilia, casually asking what she's doing out here. He tells her he's just out exploring the town with Makana and casually invites her to tag along, completely ignoring Yauki like he doesn't even exist. Cecilia tries to point out that she's actually spending time with Yauki, so Yuuga reluctantly agrees to let him come too. Then, without waiting, he grabs Cecilia and drags her off toward the accessories store, leaving Makana visibly annoyed that her first real date just got hijacked. She turns to Yauki and bluntly asks if he's on a date with Cecilia too. When he nods, Makana immediately orders him to seduce Cecilia, hoping it'll finally shift Yuuga's attention back to her. While Yauki's brain starts to overheat, thinking Makana's being supportive, she snaps him out of it by flat out calling him a pathetic eyesore. She storms into the store, leaving Yauki standing there wondering if Yuuga's still trying to flirt with Cecilia even after she turned down his marriage proposal. Fueled by frustration and jealousy, Yauki heads in, dead set on protecting the girl he loves. Once inside, he gently asks Cecilia if she'd like a gift. She hesitates, not wanting to trouble him, but Yauki insists that he wants to make the day feel special for her. Just then, Yuuga notices Yauki talking to her and immediately barges in without a shred of manners. While Yuuga goes off to get something flashy, Yauki quietly picks out a lovely necklace and gives it to Cecilia. She's delighted by the pretty pendant, clearly touched by the gesture. But the moment doesn't last. Yuuga barges back in, flashing the most expensive item in the shop, thinking it'll win her over, but it barely gets a glance. Then, without asking, he snatches her hat off and tries to force the accessory onto her, completely blowing her cover. In a flash, the entire store realizes who she is, and a massive crowd swarms them. Yauki gets shoved aside like garbage while the mob rushes Cecilia and sweeps her out of the store. Scraping himself off the floor, Yauki tries to chase after them, only to stumble into another hero getting mobbed by a horde of fangirls. Spotting Levin, the swordsman from Yuuga's team, Yauki pauses, unsure if he should step in. Thinking fast, he suddenly points off in a random direction and shouts like he just saw the hero nearby. The starry-eyed girls immediately bolt after the imaginary sighting, leaving Levin behind. With the coast clear, Yauki grabs Levin and pulls him into a secluded alley since the knight still hasn't said a word. Noticing the silence, Yauki wonders if Levin simply doesn't feel like talking. Just as he turns to walk off, Levin finally calls out in a hesitant voice, clearly embarrassed. Hearing the soft tone, Yauki starts to wonder if the charming knight is insecure about how he sounds. Levin quietly nods and asks if his voice comes off as unmanly. But Yaoki doesn't laugh or judge. He tells him straight that everyone's got something they're not too proud of. Caught off guard by the kindness, Levin stares at him while Yaoki starts scanning the street for Cecilia. Touched by his thoughtfulness, Levin shyly asks if Yaoki would be interested in being his friend. The sudden offer catches Yaoki off guard, and just as Levin starts doubting himself, Yaoki accepts with a smile before quickly turning back to search for his missing date. After a while of searching, he starts to wonder if Cecilia's alright on her own in such a big, unfamiliar city. On the other side of town, Cecilia is also looking for him when she comes across a lost little boy. She heals a cut on his knee and asks where his parents are. The boy starts tearing up, saying he lost his mom. His cries echo just enough for Yaoki to hear from nearby, and he rushes over, stepping in like some wannabe hero. Cecilia blinks in surprise, but immediately scolds him for making promises he can't keep. Watching a grown man get lectured leaves the little boy chuckling at Yaoki's expense. Shrugging it off, Yaoki teams up with Cecilia to help find the boy's mother. While walking, he gently suggests that Cecilia head home in case another crowd causes trouble. But she shakes her head and says she's not backing down. If anything happens again, they'll handle it together. Yaoki nods and keeps moving, only to glance back when Cecilia suddenly sneezes, despite the weather being blazing hot. Meanwhile, Yuuga's still wandering the city looking for Cecilia. Mikana tells him to drop it and go home, but he brushes her off and takes off running. Left behind, Mikana clenches her fists in frustration, feeling ignored on what was supposed to be their date. Not long after, Yuuga catches a glimpse of Cecilia standing with Yaoki. He spins around to tell Mikana, only to realize she's completely gone. The following morning, Yaoki finds out that Cecilia fainted on her way back home. Celia calmly explains that her daughter caught a nasty cold and she was already worn out, and thanks to Yuuga's little stunt, the crowd pushed her over the edge. Celia also mentions that Yuuga kept barging into her daughter's business, so she sent Sophia to handle him. Yaoki blinks in shock, wondering how casually Sophia could just toss the hero out like yesterday's trash. But Celia smiles and praises him for taking care of Cecilia so well. She gives him permission to visit her upstairs, and Sophia escorts him to her room. When Sophia knocks on the door, Cecilia panics from inside, mortified at the idea of Yaoki seeing her room. Sophia calmly reassures her, mentioning that she already hid the stuffed teddy bear, completely nuking whatever cool points Cecilia had left. Finally, Yaoki steps inside, clearly flustered just being in a girl's room. He sits beside her as she lies in bed, looking tired but still smiling. Feeling guilty, Yaoki admits it might be his fault she got sick, since he dragged her around so many places. Cecilia plays along and says he'll just have to make it up to her by planning an even better date next time. Lighting up, Yaoki leaps to his feet and starts boasting like some over-the-top hero ready to whisk her away on a grand adventure. Watching him put on such a ridiculous act, Cecilia bursts out laughing. That of course doesn't sit well with Sophia, so she storms in, grabs Yaoki without hesitation, and chucks him straight out of the room, yelling that he'll only make her condition worse by making her laugh so hard. Later, as Yaoki walks home rubbing his back, he spots Levin heading towards Cecilia's mansion. Curious, Yaoki stops him and asks what's going on. Levin says he's planning to confess to a girl, and he admits that she made him feel seen. She complimented his soft voice instead of mocking it, and he's been drawn to her ever since. Still, he's not sure he's good enough. Yaoki waves it off, telling him that a tall, good-looking guy like him has nothing to worry about. Feeling pumped up, Levin thanks him and walks off towards Cecilia's house. As Yaoki watches him leave, he casually wonders who the lucky girl is, only for the realization to hit him like a truck. That kind, supportive girl Levin's in love with. It's gotta be Cecilia. And just like that, Yaoki realizes he may have accidentally cheered on his own love rival. He keeps trying to convince himself that there's no freaking way Cecilia would actually go for some out-of-the-blue confession from Levin. But the more he thinks about it, the more it eats at him after all. They were traveling together in the hero's party, side by side through God's know what, and maybe something did spark between them. That thought hits him like a gut punch, and before he knows it, he's spiraling hard, right up until he sees Levin dragging himself back from the mansion like he just got steamrolled. The poor guy seriously thought the worst thing that could happen was a simple no, but reality slapped him even harder. Now he just wants to lock himself in the shower and rethink his entire damn life. Seeing Levin that crushed gets Yaoki curious, so he makes his way back up to the mansion and asks Sophia if she knows what actually went down when Levin came to pour his heart out to Cecilia. But to his surprise, Sophia tells him that Levin didn't come for Cecilia at all. He was here to see happiness. That throws Yaoki for a loop, because he had no idea Levin had a thing for her. Without wasting time, he goes off to find Happiness and asks if she spoke with a red-haired guy a little while ago. Happiness nods, confirming it, and when Yaoki explains that Levin's his friend, she looks genuinely surprised. Yaoki pushes a bit more and asks if it's true that Levin confessed his feelings to her, and if so, what exactly she said to leave him looking so crushed. Happiness hesitates at first, but then admits that when Levin asked her out, she shot him down on the spot, telling him flat out it was never gonna happen. That kind of rejection would wreck anyone, so Yaoki gets why Levin looked like a ghost. But if she's not into him, there's really nothing that can be done. Except, just as he's about to move on, she adds that she does like Levin. And before Yaoki can even make sense of that, she bolts. Later that night, Yaoki gathers his squad for a quick meeting to unpack the whole Levin Happiness situation. The other two look completely lost, so he explains that Levin is the swordsman from the hero's party. But the second that name comes up, Duke snaps and demands to know why Yaoki would let Happiness get involved with a human. Yaoki quickly defends himself, saying he had nothing to do with it, and he doesn't even know how they met in the first place, and that's not the point right now. He tells them Levin confessed to her, and Duke immediately assumes it must have gone horribly, especially since most of the humans who approached Happiness in the past were either after her feathers or had weird furry fetishes. Either way, not a great history. But Seek's not convinced she hates humans. After all, she chose to work here as a maid because she genuinely liked the people in the mansion. So if she gave Levin the time of day, it probably means she saw something good in him. The following morning, Yaoki shows up at the guild like usual, but something feels off. Kramen isn't around. One of the other receptionists waves him over, recognizing him as the guy who's always chatting with the Vice Guild Master. At first, Yaoki's confused because he's never spoken to the Vice Guild Master. But she clarifies that lazy, unbothered Kramen is actually the second in command around here. That hits like a brick, but Yaoki brushes it off for now and just asks where the hell Kramen went. It's supposed to be under wraps, but since she knows they're close, the receptionist leans in and quietly tells him the truth. Kramen's in the hospital after getting into it with his wife. Later, Yaoki heads over to the hospital to check in on him and is floored by how rough Kramen looks. He asks what happened, and Kramen sighs, explaining that yesterday was his wedding anniversary. He got so caught up trying to pick the perfect gift that he spent the whole damn day glued to a jewelry display. By the time he finally got home, he'd missed dinner, and his wife assumed he had forgotten the anniversary altogether, so things exploded from there. Yaoki jokes that Kramen's wife must pack a serious punch if she messed him up this badly. Kramen just nods and says it's to be expected. She's a retired A-rank adventurer. That alone makes Yaoki's jaw drop, but Kramen adds that he's a former A-rank himself, just to even the playing field. It'll take some time for all those bruises to heal naturally, so Yaoki offers to cast some healing magic, but Kramen immediately shuts that down, because being banged up like this is the perfect excuse to get pampered by his wife while he milks it for all it's worth. And right then, she walks in, and to Yaoki's absolute shock, it turns out to be Sophia. He never in a million years would have guessed that she and Kramen were a thing. But the way they interact, he can tell they're genuinely happy together, aside from the occasional beatdown. After a little more chatting, Yaoki gets ready to head out. Sophia thanks him for visiting, and he tells her it's no big deal since it's normal to check in on a friend when they're down. Before leaving, he brings up Cecilia, asking if she's doing any better. Sophia says her fever broke, and she's definitely feeling stronger, but she's out running errands right now, so he won't catch her today. Thinking out loud, Yaoki asks if she has any ideas for a nice gift he could give Cecilia, just something to lift her spirits. Sophia tells him it doesn't have to be anything fancy, as long as it's from the heart. Cecilia will appreciate whatever he chooses. Yaoki thanks her for the advice and steps out of the hospital, but as he strolls down the street, his mind drifts off, daydreaming about what life might be like if he and Cecilia ever ended up married. By the time he shakes himself out of it, he realizes he's wandered near the night dorm. Since he's already here, he figures he might as well check in on Levin. He opens the door and finds Levin still lying in bed, just as miserable as he was the day Happiness turned him down. It hits Yaoki right in the gut, so he decides to try cheering him up. He asks if Levin could walk him through how things even started between them, what led to him falling for her in the first place. Levin sighs and starts explaining. It happened on a pretty normal afternoon while he was out on patrol. That's when he spotted a girl being cornered by a couple of drunk idiots. He didn't waste time, took out the first guy clean, and once the others figured out who they were messing with, they took off running. The job done, so he turned to leave. But before he could take a step, the girl grabbed his cape and thanked him. Levin told her it was nothing. He was just doing his job, but then it hit him. He'd just spoken out loud, and that meant a total stranger had heard his voice. He instantly tensed up, worried she might laugh or mock him for how it sounded. But instead, Happiness looked him right in the eye and said she liked it. No sarcasm, no teasing, she genuinely meant it. Levin thought she was messing with him at first, but she was dead serious. She thanked him one more time, smiled, and took off to finish her errands. And just like that, she was gone. But she'd already left a mark on him. That moment stuck with him. It's what gave him the push to eventually confess, though clearly, it didn't go the way he'd hoped. Looking back, Levin admits it might have been too soon. They barely knew each other, and jumping straight into a confession probably made things awkward. Still, Yaoki tells him not to throw in the towel just yet. From what he's seen, there might still be a shot. And in the meantime, they should get out of this place and clear their heads. So the two of them head out, and Yaoki ends up bringing Levin to the same jewelry shop he visited with Cecilia a while back, the one where he never got around to buying that necklace. While browsing, Levin's eyes land on a gorgeous pendant that immediately makes him think of Happiness. He hesitates, unsure if it's weird to buy a gift for someone he barely knows, but Yaoki tells him not to overthink it. It's not about making a move, it's about the thought behind it. And honestly, the piece suits her so well, there's no way she won't appreciate it. Levin ends up buying the pendant, but since he doesn't like people hearing his voice, he quietly communicates with the cashier using pen and paper. Once the purchase is done and they're heading out of the store, Yaoki and Levin suddenly run into Mikana, who's clearly surprised to see both of them walking out of a jewelry shop together. She raises an eyebrow and asks what they're doing here, and without missing a beat, Yaoki tells her they're picking out gifts for the women they're in love with. Mikana already knew about Yaoki's obvious crush on Cecilia, so that doesn't shock her one bit. But hearing that Levin's got someone on his mind is new, so she instantly presses him to spill the details, but Levin just shuts down and refuses to say a word. And honestly, she knows why. A while back, she joked about the way he sounded, and ever since then, he's been way too self-conscious to talk around her. She genuinely regrets it. She's apologized already, but even she knows an apology doesn't magically fix things, so she backs off a bit and doesn't push. Still, even if he won't talk to her, she's dying to know who he's crushing on, so she invites both of them out for lunch, hoping to get the story that way. But unfortunately for her, the second they sit down, the two idiots start scarfing down food like their lives depend on it, clearly trying to avoid answering anything. Solid plan, until Mikana casually drops the bomb that she might have some juicy stories about Cecilia if Yaoki's willing to talk. And that's all it takes. He caves instantly. She jumps right in and asks how far things have gone between him and Cecilia. But Yaoki just shrugs, saying there's nothing going on yet. He mentions that she's gotten a flood of marriage proposals, even one from Yuuga, which makes Mikana visibly annoyed. She can't understand how the guy still hasn't picked up on any of her signals. He's always been a clueless moron, the kind who'd accidentally walk in on Cecilia while she was changing or in the bath without even realizing what he'd done. And no matter where they went, girls would swarm him like moths to a flame. It wasn't like he did it on purpose, but that laid-back attitude of his really grated on Cecilia's nerves. And when she's pissed, she's terrifying. Mikana then turns back to Levin and tries again, asking about his crush. But before he can even respond, Yaoki cuts her off because he's not about to let her mess with Levin. She quickly defends herself, saying she's not trying to tease him or make fun of him. She's just got some love-life problems of her own and thought maybe talking about them with someone would help. To be honest, she's convinced Yuuga resents her for something she did. She tells Yaoki that even though the kingdom's official report claimed they crushed the demon lord, the truth is they got their asses handed to them multiple times by some random demon general, no less. And every single time they lost, they'd end up waking in a nearby village, all healed up like nothing happened. But it didn't matter how many times they regrouped and came back. That same demon kept trashing them worse each time. Yaoki starts feeling kind of guilty at this point, remembering how he deliberately stalled their progress a few times just so he could sneak a few extra glances at Cecilia. Still, it's not like he meant to humiliate them. Either way, after every defeat, the hero party had no choice but to lie to the public and pretend they were winning, just to keep morale from falling apart. But their supplies were drying up, and if they didn't take that demon down soon, the people were going to lose all faith in them. That's when, during one of their attempts, the demon made them a deal. It said it would let them walk straight into the demon lord's throne room without resistance, on one condition: they leave Cecilia behind. And it was Mikana who pushed the group to accept. Her argument was that if they failed again, Yuuga's reputation as a hero would be ruined, so they agreed and left Cecilia behind. She survived somehow, but Mikana doesn't think Yuuga has forgiven her for what she did. He still smiles and jokes around, but she can feel it. His view of her changed that day. Cecilia probably sees her differently too, and things have been weird between all of them ever since. Yaoki knows this mess is partly on him. His selfish choices helped create the divide in their group, and now it's too tangled for him to fix alone. He asks Mikana if she's at least tried to talk to Cecilia about it. But how is she supposed to bring it up? And what is she supposed to say? Sorry for throwing you to the wolves, but I didn't want Yuuga to look bad. That won't exactly fix anything. Yaoki gets it. It's not an easy thing to admit. But if she doesn't say anything, this awkward silence between them is going to last forever. So he tells her to at least think about facing it. Mikana quietly nods, realizing he's right. If she ever wants things to feel normal again, she's got to make the effort to fix what she broke. Inspired by that, Levin decides to step up too, and he wants to try talking to Happiness one more time. So he and Yaoki make their way back to Cecilia's house. When they find her, Levin quietly apologizes for dumping his feelings on her so suddenly last time. Then, he hands her a pendant he bought and asks if maybe they could start off as just friends. Happiness smiles and likes the sound of that. A few days pass, and Yaoki's damn near withering away from going almost a full week without laying eyes on Cecilia. Ever since she got back on her feet, she's been all over the place, checking in on villagers, healing the injured, and lending a hand wherever it's needed. The rest of the hero crew's been slammed too. Levin's locked into his night shifts, Mikana's buried in royal mage assignments, and Yuuga's been bouncing between beast hunting and diplomatic errands. But as for Yaoki, he's been stuck doing absolutely jack, just sulking around like some lovesick stray. That's when a miracle knocks on his front door literally. It's Happiness, and she's got a message from the heavens. Well, technically from Cecilia, but close enough. She says Cecilia's finally heading back home this afternoon, which means Yaoki gets to see her again at last. He's over the moon since this is his golden chance to give her that necklace he's been holding on to since the last time he missed his shot. So he heads out, hyped and hopeful, until a random old hag running a fortune-telling stall stops him mid-step and blurts out that he's gonna have the worst luck ever today. Should have been a red flag, but Yaoki laughs it off, calls it a scam in his head, and keeps walking, since he's on his way to see Cecilia, so what the hell could go wrong? First stop, the bakery. He wants to bring her something sweet, so he swings by to grab some cupcakes. Only problem is, the usual lady's off today and had her beefy brother cover for her. And this dude's taking his temporary job like he's running a Michelin-starred war zone. The vibe's awkward as hell, so Yaoki just grabs a few cupcakes and bounces. But halfway down the road, he notices the damn things are squashed flat, thanks to Mr. Muscle's death grip. But thankfully, they still taste fine. But that's just the start. On his way to Cecilia's place, Yaoki bumps shoulders with a walking brick of a man, nearly plants his foot in a fresh pile of dog crap, and gets blindsided by some little kid who drops his meat skewer right in the dirt. Yaoki could have shrugged and walked off, but no, he's too nice for his own good. He ends up buying the kid a replacement just to stop the waterworks, even though it wasn't even his fault. Up to this point, it's all just been dumb little setbacks. But the universe isn't done yet, because not 2 steps later, some random punk slips by and swipes Yaoki's wallet clean. A lot of guys would just call it a loss and move on, but not Yaoki. That's his hard-earned cash, and he's not about to let some thief run off with it. So he taps into his power, chases the dude down, and beats the brakes off him. Totally deserved, but the only issue is Yuuga rolls up just in time to catch Yaoki mid-beatdown, looking like he's mugging some poor soul in broad daylight. Yaoki tries to set the record straight and explain it's all just a big misunderstanding, but Yuuga isn't having it. Instead of listening, he starts swinging, trying to force Yaoki to give up without a fight. Now, Yaoki could absolutely mop the floor with him if he wanted to, but doing that would blow his cover as an ordinary guy, so instead, he makes a run for it. Problem is, he doesn't get far as his path gets cut off by a squad of knights, and punching his way out would just make things worse down the road. Left with no better option, Yaoki throws in the towel and surrenders. They toss him in jail for a crime he didn't even commit. And at this point, he's starting to wonder if that crazy old fortune lady actually knew what she was talking about. Still, it's not a total disaster because he's got people in his corner. Not long after, Duke swings by to check in on him. Turns out, Duke got scouted by the Royal Knights just a few days ago, and he thinks it's hilarious that Yaoki's already found himself in such a ridiculous mess. Yaoki insists he didn't do anything wrong, but Duke already figured as much. He tells him not to stress because Levin caught wind of the situation and is digging into it as they speak, so it's only a matter of time before it all gets cleared up. Right then, another knight named Irene shows up and gives Yaoki the news. He's officially in the clear and free to go. Yaoki breathes a huge sigh of relief, but then she drops something unexpected. Apparently, Yuuga wants to meet up with him to apologize, which is the last thing Yaoki thought he'd hear today. Later that day, the two of them sit down at a restaurant, and Yuuga is genuinely apologetic for the whole mess. To make it up to him, he offers to treat him to a proper meal. Yaoki is kind of stunned by how sincere and pure the guy seems. There's no trace of bad blood or shady intent, so he accepts the offer. After they finish eating, Yuuga tries to strike up some casual conversation. He admits he had no idea Yaoki was on good terms with Levin, and even though he didn't recognize him right away, now that they've talked a bit, he realizes that Yaoki is the same guy he spotted with Cecilia the other day. So naturally, he asks about their relationship. Yaoki keeps it cool and simply replies that the two of them are just friends for now. That clearly puts Yuuga at ease, but then he says he wants to ask a favor. He wants tips on how to get along with Cecilia. And honestly, that's the last topic Yaoki wants to touch with this guy. He tells Yuuga that he and Cecilia only recently became close, so if he's serious about learning how to connect with her, he should probably talk to someone who's known her for way longer, like Mikana. But Yuuga quickly shuts that down, saying Mikana probably hates Cecilia's guts, so asking her is out of the question. Yaoki's stunned to hear that and immediately asks if Mikana actually said that to Yuuga's face, but Yuuga admits that she didn't, and he just knows she doesn't like Cecilia. He explains that during the final battle, it was Mikana who convinced the others to leave Cecilia behind, and there's no way she would have done that if she didn't hate her. But Yaoki doesn't think that's a fair assumption, especially since Yuuga never even talked to her about it. He tells him that Mikana was just as wrecked as the rest of them over what happened. She cried the entire time, but Yuuga fires back, asking how the hell Yaoki would even know that, considering he wasn't there. Now, Yaoki does know, because he was there. He was the demon that day, but since he obviously can't just drop that bomb, he tells Yuuga that Mikana told him. Still, he can't bring himself to believe that Mikana wasn't to blame, because if she's not, then that would mean he was. That he was the one who failed Cecilia. And if that's true, then he's not sure he could ever forgive himself. Yaoki doesn't sugarcoat it. He tells Yuuga to quit deflecting and stop dumping the blame on his friends, because if he can't even own up to his own mistakes, then he's got no right calling himself a hero. That hits Yuuga hard, so hard that he suddenly breaks down crying. Yaoki immediately wonders if he maybe went a bit too far yelling at him, but turns out the message actually got through. Yaoki's words helped Yuuga realize just how badly he messed up. Mikana's been his ride or die since they were kids. She's stuck with him through everything, backed him up the moment he became a hero, and yet he couldn't bring himself to trust her. Instead, he assumed she left Cecilia out of spite. Now he's just stuck wondering how the hell he's supposed to make things right with her. Yaoki tells him the answer's simple, just say sorry. Mikana clearly still cares about him, and even if she gives him some tough love, she'll forgive him for sure. That puts the fire back in Yuuga. He gets hyped up and says he's going to apologize to her right now. Only, he's a bit too nervous to show up alone, so he begs Yaoki and Levin to tag along. Eventually, all three of them make it to Mikana's place, and while Yuuga is practically vibrating with determination, Yaoki's low-key annoyed he had to come all this way when all he wanted was to finally see Cecilia today. Yuuga tells them he just needs some emotional backup, so they can wait outside while he goes in to handle it. Yuuga walks straight into the house and rushes up to Mikana's room, only to barge in right as she's in the middle of changing. Mikana instantly panics and freaks out, but Yuuga stays completely stone-faced and tells her he's got something important to say. He admits he's finally realized how unfair he's been to her all this time, blaming her for abandoning Cecilia when that wasn't even the truth. He knows that just saying sorry won't magically fix everything, but he hopes she can forgive him so they can go back to how things used to be. Mikana feels a huge wave of relief knowing that Yuuga doesn't resent her anymore. But then she remembers that she's still standing there in her underwear, and now she's not sure which part is worse. The fact that Yuuga walked in on her while changing, or the fact that he didn't even flinch. Either way, she's still pissed about it, so she decides to take out her frustration on him. Outside, Yaoki and Levin can hear the chaos unfolding upstairs, but there's really nothing they can do to help, so they both shrug it off and leave Yuuga to his doom. Finally free to head over to see Cecilia, Yaoki makes his way through the streets and ends up passing by that same fortune teller again. Just like before, he assumes it's a scam and keeps walking without giving her the time of day. She clearly doesn't appreciate being ignored twice in one day. That said, it looks like Yaoki's luck is finally starting to swing in his favor. So maybe he must have done something good without even realizing it. A little farther down the road, Yaoki runs into the owner of the cake shop. She just found out that her musclehead brother accidentally crushed most of the cupcakes Yaoki bought earlier, and she feels awful about it. Yaoki tells her it's no big deal, but she still insists on making it up to him by handing him a fresh bag of cakes. As he continues on his way, things take a weird turn when 3 guys in suits suddenly surround him. For a second, it looks like he's about to get jumped, but turns out, these guys are the personal staff of the kid from earlier, and they've shown up to thank Yaoki for helping him out. To show their gratitude, they hand him a full bag of meat skewers. A short while later, Yaoki finally makes it to Cecilia's house, but Happiness isn't too happy to see him show up so late. Still, he heads inside at last to meet Cecilia, and she's overjoyed to see him again because it's been way too long since they last met. Yaoki says he brought her a little something, and Cecilia appreciates the gesture, but she's a bit thrown off by the combination of cakes and meat. Still, she brushes it off and offers to go make a pot of tea, so they can sit and catch up over the snacks. Yaoki's a little surprised since that's usually the maid's job, so Cecilia proudly tells him she's been learning a few home skills lately from Sophia, and now she knows how to make tea properly. After a few minutes of casual conversation, Cecilia learns that Happiness and Levin have hit it off lately, and that Yaoki's gotten familiar with both Mikana and Yuuga. But just as they're talking about them, they suddenly hear Yuuga's voice calling for Cecilia from outside. A few seconds later, he bursts into her room, ready to pour out a heartfelt apology, except Mikana slams him aside with a punch, scolding him for barging in like a lunatic. Cecilia's completely confused by the whole thing, and Yaoki's just stunned. They weren't expecting the entire group to crash the party like this, but apparently, they all came with the same goal in mind, to say sorry. Mikana steps up first and sincerely apologizes for leaving Cecilia behind back then. But Cecilia quickly assures everyone that she doesn't hold any grudges. Her life wasn't the only one on the line that day. The rest of them had to face the Demon Lord without a healer backing them up. And from what she sees, Mikana was the first to rush back to check on her as soon as the battle was over, with Yuuga and Levin not far behind. The fact that they all came running to help her, even after the hell they just went through, told Cecilia everything she needed to know. They never stopped caring, and honestly, it's not like they had much of a choice back then, so there's no reason for her to blame them. What matters now is that everyone made it out alive. There's no point in dragging guilt around anymore. Later, Yaoki and Cecilia go for a stroll together, enjoying the peaceful vibe. At some point, Cecilia glances at him and asks if he had anything to do with everyone suddenly showing up to apologize like that. Yaoki admits it. He gave them a gentle push in the right direction. After all, the whole thing kind of started because of him anyway. Cecilia smiles warmly, thankful that her friends are finally united again. The timing couldn't be better, so Yaoki decides to go for it. He tells her he has something for her, then reaches into his pocket and pulls out the necklace he bought. He asks if she'll accept it, and Cecilia beams as she tells him she'll treasure it forever. That answer lifts a huge weight off Yaoki's shoulders, because honestly, he had no idea what he would have done if she said no. Not long after, Cecilia asks Yaoki to tag along on a mission because she got word from a far-off village asking for help. Yaoki's quick to agree, ready to jump in and support her. But of course, Seek had to show up too. What was supposed to be some quiet time alone with Cecilia suddenly turns into a third-wheel situation. Seek clearly didn't want to be left out, and by the time he invited himself in, there was no graceful way to tell him to back off. Once they reach the village, Cecilia realizes the situation is way worse than expected. She'd heard it was a bandit attack, but the destruction tells a much darker story. The village chief comes out to welcome them, visibly relieved to see the renowned priestess herself, though he's got no clue who the 2 guys with her are. Cecilia introduces them as her companions and points out that both are proficient in healing magic. The chief lights up at that and leads them to the town hall where the injured are being treated. They jump right into action, healing villagers one at a time. For Yaoki, this kind of mass healing isn't even a challenge, but he notices Cecilia pushing herself hard. He's quietly impressed by her dedication and how deeply she cares, but what really gets him thinking is the strange fact that, despite all the wounds, none of the villagers were killed. The chief explains that halfway through the assault, the bandits were ambushed and forced to retreat. It was a lucky break, but Yaoki finds it odd, like someone just happened to swoop in at the perfect moment. As he watches Cecilia continue working without rest, he starts to get concerned. She's clearly running on fumes, so he approaches and gently suggests she take a break. She refuses, saying she's not done helping yet. So with no other option, Yaoki does what he has to, and he casts a sleep spell on her. Sure, knocking out a priestess in public probably wasn't the best move, but he calmly reassures everyone that she's fine and just needed some forced rest. Later on, Cecilia wakes up groggy and furious, demanding to know why the hell he knocked her out like that. Yaoki apologizes right away, explaining that she was about to collapse from mana depletion if he hadn't stepped in. She doesn't like it, but deep down, she knows he's right. Cecilia admits she might have pushed herself a bit too far, so she understands why Yaoki stepped in like he did. But she still makes him promise never to use magic on her again without asking first. Yaoki agrees without hesitation, and to ease her worries about the villagers, he lets her know she can finally relax because he and Seek already finished treating everyone while she was out. That makes Cecilia genuinely happy, and she thanks him warmly. Just then, the village chief walks in to check on how things are going. He's relieved to see Cecilia up and well, but he hesitates a bit before speaking again. There's one more thing he needs help with. A little girl named Teal lives on the edge of the village, and he was hoping they could go visit her. The group asks if she was hurt during the bandit raid, but thankfully, that's not it. She's safe, but she's been frail and sickly since the day she was born, so he thought maybe Cecilia could help her somehow. Cecilia agrees to give it a try and asks for directions to the girl's home, and a few minutes later, they arrive and finally meet Teal. The girl's clearly caught off guard when a bunch of unfamiliar faces suddenly show up in her house. But Cecilia quickly reassures her that there's nothing to be scared of. They're here because the village chief asked them to come. Teal looks like she's about to say something when she's suddenly hit with a heavy coughing fit. And just like that, it's obvious the chief wasn't exaggerating. This girl's in rough shape. Seek steps up and offers her some medicine he brewed himself. Teal eyes it suspiciously at first, because let's be real, mystery potions from a random dude aren't the most comforting thing. But Yaoki backs him up, telling her that Seek knows what he's doing and the medicine is totally safe. Teal decides to trust him and drinks the whole thing. And to her surprise, her throat actually feels a little better right away. She lights up and thanks them, convinced that their arrival must have been a gift from the guardian deity. Yaoki blinks because he has no clue what that even is, so Teal explains that there's a statue of a deity standing out by the village edge, and on the day of the raid, she had gone to leave an offering there. But while heading back, she suddenly felt sleepy and collapsed in the forest. That's how she avoided the bandits entirely, and she's sure it was the guardian deity who saved her. Seek suggests that what happened might have just been a coincidence, but Teal is completely convinced it was the guardian watching over her. She explains that when she was 7, she was once surrounded by wolves in the middle of the night, and there was no way she should have survived. But right before things turned fatal, the guardian deity appeared and struck the wolves down with black lightning, and ever since that night, it has continued protecting her. Teal doesn't see anything strange about the story at all, but to Yaoki and Cecilia, sleep magic and black lightning sound dangerously close to demonic abilities. Naturally, that raises some red flags, but Teal insists there's nothing suspicious about her guardian and even offers to guide them to it herself to prove her point. However, when she finally shows them the statue, it's obvious there's no denying it. It's obviously a demon statue. Teal gets defensive immediately, saying she won't tolerate anyone insulting her beloved guardian. But she's still weak, barely able to stay on her feet, so Cecilia quickly apologizes for pushing her too far and escorts Teal back home. While Cecilia is away, Yaoki takes a closer look at the statue and realizes it looks almost identical to the gargoyles they once had in the Demon Lord's castle. The moment he says it out loud, the statue suddenly comes to life and fires black lightning straight at him. Yaoki narrowly dodges the attack, and Seek steps in, managing to restrain the gargoyle. Now subdued, the two of them aren't sure what to do next. Seek suggests finishing it off, but Yaoki stops him, saying he'd rather try talking first before jumping straight to killing it. After things finally settle down, the gargoyle sits there and cautiously asks if they really aren't planning to kill him. Yaoki points out that the gargoyle was the one who attacked first, and the gargoyle quickly apologizes. He explains that once Yaoki identified him as a demon gargoyle, he realized his cover was blown and panicked. Years ago, he was originally created to guard a temple, but bandits stole him along the way. Those same bandits eventually attacked this village, and when the gargoyle finally snapped, he wiped them out with black lightning. And that incident caused the villagers to start worshipping him as a guardian deity. As time passed, the villagers gradually stopped coming, until only Teal remained. And ever since the day he saved her as a child, she's been visiting the statue daily, cleaning it and leaving offerings without fail. Yaoki asks if that means the gargoyle has no plans to harm anyone in the village, and the gargoyle replies that he doesn't care about humans at all. He just lives there, nothing more. If that's the case, then there's really no reason to worry. So Yaoki gives a small nod and apologizes for the trouble. But before heading back, he turns to Seek with a quiet request. He basically asks Seek to return to the village ahead of them, just so he can enjoy a little alone time with Cecilia. But once he finally gets his wish and walks beside her in silence, he quickly realizes he doesn't have the slightest idea what to say. As they stroll through the woods, Cecilia accidentally trips over a root jutting from the path. Yaoki rushes forward and catches her just in time, and for a few seconds, the two of them lock eyes until the moment drags too long and they awkwardly look away. Eventually, they return to the village, only to find that the bandits from before have returned for round 2, this time fully confident they'll win. But right on cue, Yaoki, Cecilia, and Seek step in to confront them. The bandits aren't worried at all. They think sheer numbers will overwhelm the trio. That is, until Yaoki turns to Seek and calmly gives him permission to fight with lethal force. And in the blink of an eye, the bandits start dropping left and right. Cecilia is stunned because she's never seen Seek in combat before, and his strength completely catches her off guard. But that's nothing compared to what Yaoki brings to the table. When he joins the fray, he wipes out dozens of enemies in an instant. Even when one of them tries to blindside Cecilia, Yaoki fries him with a blast of electricity like it was nothing. He has the entire battlefield under control. Everything seems to be going smoothly until they spot thick smoke rising from the direction of the Guardian Shrine. That can't be good, so Yaoki immediately tells Seek to go check it out while he handles the rest of the fight. The remaining bandits try to regroup and charge in together, hoping to take down Yaoki and Cecilia with brute force. But Yaoki stares them down and flatly tells them that it doesn't matter how many of them there are, they'll never stand a chance. Then he casts a massive windstorm spell and wipes them all out in one blast. With the bandits finally dealt with, Yaoki starts to worry when Seek doesn't return from the shrine. Something's wrong, so he and Cecilia make their way toward the shrine, and when they arrive, what they find stops them cold. The gargoyle is severely wounded, and Seek is being held up in the air by his throat. Yaoki glares at the man with pure anger and demands to know who the hell he is. But before things escalate further, Cecilia explains that the man is Miller, the hero of the neighboring Galleys Empire. The revelation catches Yaoki off guard because he didn't realize there was more than one hero in the world. But right now, Seek's condition is what matters most. Once Seek comes to, he explains what happened. When he arrived at the shrine, he saw Miller ambushing the gargoyle from behind while it was trying to protect Teal. Seek stepped in to stop him, but he was completely outmatched and lost the fight. Miller scoffs and says there's nothing wrong with killing a gargoyle, and if Seek got hurt, that's his own fault for being stupid enough to interfere. Without another word, Miller turns and starts walking back toward the gargoyle to finish the job. Yaoki tells him to stop and tries reasoning with him, explaining that the gargoyle isn't harming anyone. But Miller doesn't care. Harmless or not, it's still a demon in his eyes, and if Yaoki gets in his way, he'll cut him down too. Yaoki responds by firing a lightning bolt straight at him, but the attack vanishes the instant it touches Miller's sword. Cecilia shouts for Yaoki to pull back, warning him that Miller's weapon is a man-made magic sword designed to absorb any magic it comes into contact with. Against that thing, Yaoki is at a serious disadvantage. Cecilia desperately pleads with Miller to stop, warning him that killing innocent people could spark a war between nations. Instead of backing down, Miller grins because he actually likes the idea. Killing people is one of his favorite pastimes, and a war would give him all the justification he needs to slaughter as many as he wants. At that point, it's obvious that this guy is completely unhinged, and there's no way Yaoki can let him walk away. Miller laughs at Yaoki, mocking him for thinking he has any chance of winning when his magic is useless against the sword. But Yaoki doesn't flinch, and instead he starts firing spell after spell in rapid succession. The sword may absorb magic, but it was still created by human hands, and that means it has a limit. And after Yaoki unleashes a barrage of his strongest attacks, that limit is finally reached. With a sharp crack, Miller's magic sword shatters into pieces. Yaoki blasts Miller straight into a tree with a wind spell, slamming him hard enough that it looks like the fight's over. But turns out, Miller had one last dirty move. He launches a magic spear straight at Yaoki. Cheap tricks like that don't land on him though, and he sidesteps it with ease. Problem is, the gargoyle was standing right behind him, and the spear was flying right for it. But at the very last second, Teal throws herself in the way and takes the hit square in the chest. Miller didn't see that coming, but he burst out laughing anyway. He finds it hilarious that a human girl would throw her life away to protect a demon. Yaoki spins back toward him, seething, and swears he's not letting this bastard walk away. But Miller's already got a getaway plan, and he fires off a volley of arrows at Yaoki's group, forcing him to throw up a shield to protect them. That moment of distraction is all Miller needs to slip into the forest and vanish. Yaoki clenches his fist, furious. He let him get away because he was too dependent on magic. That rage bubbling inside finally boils over, and just like that, his full demon form bursts out. It's the first time Cecilia's seen this version of him, and it shakes her. She's afraid he's lost control. But right now, Yaoki has only one thing on his mind: hunting Miller down and smashing his face in. He launches into the sky and locks onto Miller's location in seconds. Then he dives, grabs him by the skull, and slams him into the dirt before kicking him clean through a couple hundred trees like a wrecking ball. Miller's stunned. He can't believe a demon this powerful still exists, even after the demon lord was defeated. But he barely has time to think before Yaoki flashes behind him, picking the beatdown right back up. Miller throws out everything he's got in a panic, but Yaoki rips the weapon from his hands and drops him to his knees like it's nothing. He yanks him into the air by the throat, holding him there. One squeeze, that's all it would take to end him. But he stops because killing him like this is not what Cecilia would want. So instead, Yaoki lets go and drops him straight into the river, to let the current decide his fate. Later, Yaoki returns to Teal's home, where Cecilia is waiting for him. He asks how everyone's doing, and she gives a relieved smile and tells him both Teal and Seek pulled through. She managed to heal them in time. And more than anything, she's just glad Yaoki came back safe. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching. If you want to see the next part, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.